ashes a row, and then 16 we rose with the chip on our shoulder that everyone knows. I stand with the faithful, the loud and the loyal, on Michigan soil where the battle lines coil. I pledge allegiance to the shield and the main, through the lake effect snow and the November rain. One nation under God, moving the chains with the fire of the city coursing through our veins. Hey, invisible spirit, above and will crack. We got the whole league's targets on our back. Watch the war room flicker, watch the vision take hold, turning late round flyers into Detroit gold. He's the master of the board, the dealer of the deck, putting every expert opinion in check. Put every expert opinion in check. He doesn't follow trends, he creates the hook. Quiet in the room, let Brad cook. To the trenches we swear, where the dirty work's done, where the game isn't played, it's physically won. I promise to roar till my vocal cords fray, to believe in the homes and the Brad chosen way. We don't want the flash, we don't want the glitz, just the hunters who thrive in the heart of the grit. Liberty from the cellar, and justice for the years of pain. No more same old lions, just the kings of the northern reign. I pledge my allegiance, my heart and my roar, to the team that we love and the team we adore. With kneecaps for breakfast and victory in sight, we're the Detroit Lions and we're winning tonight. In his third season from Alabama, number 0, Jahmyr Gibbs.
All right, what's happening, everybody? Good morning, Lions fans. It is August 6th today. Lions back on the practice field in a full padded practice. We'll have updates this afternoon, how everything went. Last night, we kind of went through a full update. Week 1, what did it bring us? Where are the Lions sitting today with the roster battles? I think we're going to do a 53-man prediction today. Not sure how long I'll be on this morning. Could be an hour, could be an hour and a half, could be 3 hours. Who knows? Just depends on how good our conversations go, huh? But a lot of good notes, a lot of good things has really been happening over the last week for the Lions. I mean, all things considered with injuries, the Lions have lost a couple of players for the season. But these were not players that were expected to be major contributors. So at least for right now, the Lions are in great shape. The season still moves forward. And the starting core is ready to roll. And they're looking good. Both sides are looking good. Obviously, the offense is taking a little bit of a slower ramp-up time than the defense, which is normal. I don't know if anyone else has discussed this. But every year, it seems like the defense gets out and kind of gets out in front every season. Now, with a new defense, some people may have expected that they were going to slow up a little bit. The thing is, when you're installing a new defense and the offense is seeing it for the first time, obviously it's going to take them a little bit. Now, one of the Lions or one of the offense's Achilles heels last year, no pun intended, was seeing a nickel defense more often, a blitzing nickel defense more often. And then Jared Goff getting a lot of pressure up front. And that was what hurt the Lions the most throughout the course of the season last year. And so I do believe that this radical change in defense, if you want to call it that, utilizing the nickel more, is going to set this offense, and especially Jared Goff, up to have better vision, make better decisions, quicker and be able to get that ball out right away. So that's my little opener of the day. That I do believe that both sides are doing well. The rookies that are still available are doing well, especially Abney and Miller. Right now, obviously, we don't have Moore and Rolder in there. Skylar Gill-Howard, Tyree West, they're still ramping up. They're still getting their feet underneath them as expected, right? They're late day draft picks. It's highly unusual for late day draft picks to have a phenomenal first year. It does happen. It's occasional. It's less than 5% of the time does it happen. And in this case, it's not happening just yet. But that doesn't mean that they're not making, good headway or improving day by day, because they are. So let's get into, what are we on? Day 8? It's day 8 officially. However you want to count it. I mean, they had practice yesterday. It was mostly walkthroughs. The media was there for a small portion of it. But today is an official padded practice day. So we're going to get into Drew Petzing's interview this morning. We're going to talk about Jonathan Taylor's deal here in just a moment. We're going to go around the NFC North a little bit and see what's happening. There's been some high criticism on J.J. McCarthy, and I think it's notable who it came from. So we'll talk about that. Where's Caleb Williams? How is he performing? And of course, I just got to say it. If you're a Bears cuck, man, you guys feel like this guy is God's gift to green earth, and he's not. And I'll explain why. He's extremely hot in camp. Or is he? I'll explain in just a few moments. The Cheeseheads. We'll talk about the Cheeseheads today. What are they doing? Where they, how are they performing? What's happening for them? Obviously, we're going to set the NFC North upright and see where the Lions belong in this situation this year. For a lot of us, we feel it's time to take it back. It's time to take back the North. 1 year is 1 year too long. The Lions need to reign their dominance over this division for at least the next decade, starting today. I want to see him win at least 8 out of the next 10. I want to see him do what the Packers did for 30 years, right? I want to see the Lions win a lot, and just continue to control the situation in the NFC North. And I think they have the team to do it. Jameson Williams had a great camp. We'll talk about him briefly this morning, too. And that's all coming up next. First, I'd like to get into the chat. A new development. Number one, you guys should have new emojis, and you should have new badges this morning. Looks like they're popping up. So if you have a 6M that I see, like Rather Be Fishing Fred, Robbie, 6M is obviously 6 months. Trace, 1 year. It's much longer than that for Trace. I don't know why yours only says 1 year. On my side, didn't we see 23 months yesterday? I thought we saw 23 months yesterday. Or something like that. I don't control that. That's unless I put the wrong emoji in, or a wrong emote, or whatever the hell they're called. But I made sure I got you guys some new ones. So you have, if you guys want to start, someone load up the chat with these new badges. You have the new GOAT, which is Gibbs. You have the old GOAT. Let me see if I can just do it. Yeah, I can do it. Here we go. So you got the new GOAT, Jahmyr Gibbs. We got the toxic media button, which I didn't realize the backgrounds would show up. So now I'm going to fix these today and add some backgrounds. Of course, you got DFJ Sports in there. The NFL one that you see that is left side blue and right side red. That is Isaac Tesla. That is my throwback to Michael Jordan. I was trying to do something similar to the Michael Jordan pose. And Isaac Tesla's amazing catches. That is his, crazy catch, acrobatic catch. And so I turned it into a Michael Jordan type of a logo for the NFL. You have touchdown. You've got the smooth cat. Of course, you got the number 1. And then you got the FA button. Instead of saying the F word, you can just, instead of cussing, just use the FA button. Of course, you've got, man, I can't even see. It looks like the lion's heart. You've got one pod mic. And you got the old goat. Of course, you still got blue-haired St. Brown and then Dreamy Dan. So those are all your new ones and a couple of old ones that stuck around. I didn't get rid of the old ones. Toxic media. I love this one because whenever we're talking about something that's toxic, man, just start loading this thing in there. It's a microphone that says toxic media. It sucks you can't really see them. You can probably see them better on your phone. But anyway, hope you all enjoy them. Have fun with them. And if you have any requests, I'll be more than happy to put it together. Try to change them up like every month or something. Or add to. Take one down and pass it around and put a new one in. So shout out to everybody in the chat this morning. Of course, we got Trace, Todd Budry, Robbie, Fred, Mike P, Mrs. P, good morning. Nightbot already had his business today. Moonscar, what's happening? Gary Fron. No Eric today. Is he rocking out at camp? Now Eric is in Iowa. He's in Iowa. He's going to see his family. Hassanin Mahdi, good morning. The arch nemesis in the house. Cynthia, new member yesterday. Congratulations and thank you. So you got the new tag now. We got new tag. John Desage, good morning, man. These running backs are making some coin. Yes, they are. They absolutely are. And good morning to you, too, Mr. Mahdi. I think that's all we have in the chat. If you guys are in the chat, if you're listening, obviously let's get the likes up today. Let's make sure that we kind of match at least 75%, and we'll dial the ads all the way back by 9 o'clock. That's our deadline. And I'm ready for the season. I'm really ready for some actual football. I'm going to check my audio real quick. Be right back.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from UperLights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit UperLights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from UperLights.com.
All right, let's just roll right into. I didn't see a press conference today by Dan. I see day 6, day 5, day 3, day 2, day 1. I don't see today. Practice is at 8:30, so there should have already been a press conference. I'm wondering what's up with that. Maybe he didn't have to do one today. I don't know. I want to get in and break down
Day 6 of Detroit Lions training camp.
So let's get right into it. Well, that's not the right one. Jeez, oh Pete. Let's get this thing fixed up. Actually, we can use this one. So what's your biggest takeaways from camp so far? Let me know in the chat. What do you guys feel like the biggest takeaways? Who's your best camp battle so far? Who do you think is really going to impress in the preseason game? To me, I think Nick Whiteside's going to have a hell of a preseason game. I think he's going to play a lot of snaps. And the Lions really want to see him, jump out. And not just in camp, have a good camp, but against other competition. We'll see if Dan plays the starters. You heard Jared Goff the other day. He doesn't feel that preseason is absolutely necessary. We'll see what Dan thinks, though. All right, one more minor adjustment here, and we'll be off and rolling. All my settings got changed. I turned off all updates and somehow it still gets through. I don't know why. I don't know how. It is what it is. It always does it in the morning, too. All right, here we go. Drew Petzing's official one-on-one exclusive training camp interview with Brooke, I think is her name, right? Brooke?
Day 6 of Detroit Lions training camp practice just wrapped. I'm joined with new Lions offensive coordinator Drew Petzing. I'm Brooke Kirchhoffer out at the Meyer Performance Center. Coach, a few days now with the new offense. First impressions?
It's been great. Finally put the pads on, so we're getting closer to playing some real football. I think the guys are working hard. It's physical, it's tough, but we're getting better, and I think that's really where we need to be.
Now, you mentioned the pads. There's going to be some new faces once things shake out on who the starting 5 will be on the offensive line. What have you maybe learned from that group early on in pads?
I think you start to see that toughness. It's a different game when the pads come on, and things that were easy or you got away with before the pads come on become much more real. And I think you start to see guys separate themselves and who really wants it and who's about it and who has that ability. And you start to see some guys realize, all right, I got to pick it up. I got to take another step. I got to find a way to improve if I want to be here. And I think that's really what we're looking for.
Things are coming together on the offensive line. What have you seen from the rookie, Blake Miller, maybe leaning on some of the veterans in that room?
Yeah, I think the rookies have done a really nice job of coming in and embracing the culture. You know, I think that all starts with Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
He's an unbelievable player. He's an unbelievable leader. And I think when you walk in that room, you know the standard. And you know that he's going to do it, and he's going to hold you to it. And I think it makes everybody around him better.
A lot of weapons on this offense. I know you've got to be excited, especially with a quarterback with such a high completion percentage year in and year out. What has stood out to you that's maybe gotten you excited ahead of the season?
I think just having the weapons and so many different people that can make plays and change the game. You know, we'll draw up plays and we have scheme, we have reasons we do things, but at the end of the day, it's about those guys going out there and making plays. And you know, when you have the level of talent that they've been able to build here between Brad and Dan over the last 6 years, it's really fun to be a part of, and it creates a lot of problems for other teams.
We'll get more specific now to the quarterback, Jared Goff, your first year working with him. How would you describe how the OC-QB relationship maybe looks like behind the scenes and how you two work together?
Yeah, I think it's a very close relationship. You know, maybe that's what people assume, but it's constant conversations. I'm getting calls on my way into work. I'm getting texts at home. You know, I'm calling him and texting him, and it's, you know, you could be in the middle of the day on an off day and something pops into your brain, and the first person I'm going to go to is him, and he's probably going to hit me first and say, hey, can we do this? Are we thinking about that? What do we do here? It's something that I've loved as I've gotten to know him, is he never puts it down or walks away from it. I'm very much that way. So it's been so much fun to just challenge each other and push each other to get the best out of each other. And I think that's really what stood out to me here these first couple months.
It's interesting you mentioned the comparison. Just watching now 6 days of practice, you guys almost have the same demeanor out there, just business as usual, day in and day out. Doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. How do you think that makes him one of the most effective quarterbacks in the NFL?
I think it's a huge part of playing that position. You have to have a short memory. You have to be even keel. You can't live and die on every play. You do the best you can every time the ball snapped. You reset, you get back in the huddle, and you do it again. I think that's so important to playing that position at a high level. And obviously, as you said, he's done it that way for so long. It's really impressive.
All right, outside looking in, what made this job so appealing to you before getting here?
I think a lot of the things we've talked about so far. You know, it's the talent they've been able to build here, the culture, the attitude, the way that they do things as an organization from ownership on down. It's a special place, and it was, you know, just I was thrilled to have the opportunity to be a part of it, and it's been everything, probably more than I expected when I first took the job.
Well, we heard from Sam Laporta. He's excited you're here. You've typically had a tight end friendly offense. Can you take us into that a little bit and how maybe the NFL in general is maybe going more toward tight end friendly sets that they've been running?
Yeah, you've certainly seen that trend around the NFL. I think a lot of that, again, is going to be talent driven. You know, I've been around a lot of great tight ends, which has been awesome, so their production has increased, and that's kind of the challenge you make to the offense. Say, hey, you want to have production in this offense, you have to show me that you can do things at a really high level. Sam has certainly done that throughout his career, and it needs to continue every time we step on the field. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing throughout the NFL, the matchups that are created in the passing game, the things that these guys can do in the run game. It makes them and the offense very difficult to defend.
You're also known for your run game. What would you say is your staple or most important philosophy in that area?
I feel like I'm copping out a little bit here, but it all comes back to what do the guys do best.
Yeah.
You know, I can come in here and say, hey, we're going to run this type of scheme and we're going to do it this way all the time. But if the guys on the field, that's not what plays to their strength, we're not going to get the best out of the offense. So that to me is a lot of what the offseason and training camp is about, is figuring out what schemes we are good at, how we can dress them up, how we can complement them, what fits our players best. I think that's so important in the run and the pass game. And then part of the run game is about attitude. You know, I think the overall mentality of a run game, and I've said this to the offense and I've challenged them on this, is at the end of the day, if you're really good at running it, you should be able to tell the other team you're doing it. And if they can't stop you, it's really hard to defend. And I think that's a mindset as much as it is execution.
You talk about your scheme, and it really depends on the talent and wanting to utilize what you have in the room. So how have they kind of responded to what you've brought to the table? How has it been meshing with the new guys on offense?
I think it's a big part of the culture that was probably here before I got here, and I think you see it every day of practice. These guys go out and compete. You know, Saint's been doing this how long now? And he's done it at such a high level. But if you looked out there, he's probably going as hard as he did his rookie year, as he's trying to make a name for himself in this league. And I think that attitude, that effort, that intensity brings out the best in all of them. And again, as you said, it's going to show me, hey, if you want it, let's go get it, let's earn it, and make sure the ball comes to you, because I got to look everybody else in the eye and make sure we're doing the best things for the team.
That's got to stem from the head coach.
100%.
I have to ask you, and I think everybody wants to know too, what that relationship is like with Dan Campbell.
It's been probably, again, more than I ever imagined. I'm a sponge. Like, I ask questions, pick his brain, not in awe of him at times, but just feel really blessed to have the opportunity to learn from him, work under him, challenge him, and try to make him better as he pushes me. And it's been awesome. I've learned a ton, grown a ton as a coach, as a person, so it's been great.
You've learned a lot from Dan Campbell. You've obviously been at a couple spots before this. Your path as an offensive coordinator, is there anything unique about your journey that maybe people might not know?
I think I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of great coaches in a small amount of time. You know, I think back to 6 years in Minnesota, 4 offensive coordinators. You know, Pat Shermer, Norv Turner, Gary Kubiak, Kevin Stefanski, like so many different people I think helped grow me as a coach, grow me as a person to help me get to this opportunity. I'm very fortunate for that, but that's probably the biggest thing that maybe people don't know or weren't aware of.
We know that people know you and Ben Johnson, the familiarity with him. How often are you guys maybe even still communicating, keeping in touch? You were a groomsman, I believe, in his wedding?
Yeah, so we GA'd together at Boston College for 2 years and got really close. He was in my wedding, I was in his wedding. I hope they lose every game this year. No, I'm kidding. But no, he's a very close friend. He's a person I put a ton of trust in as a friend, as a mentor. I know he's not going to give me any inside info or any help. You know, I think we're way past that. But no, we talk, regularly. Someone that I'm going to rely on for football and a lot of things outside of football. And yeah, he's a special person that I really do enjoy being acquainted with.
Big into golf, and that stems from back in Massachusetts. Can you give the fans a little peek behind the curtain as the caddying days?
And so I grew up caddying. That was my high school, my college job. So I love the game. I put the clubs away. I'm done playing. They're not going to come out till after the season. But it's a fun sport. It's a challenging sport. It's a mentally draining sport. Wellesley High School native run the Rocket Mortgage Classic this weekend, so I got to give him a shout out. Always like to watch him play, but I did. I grew up around the game, love caddying. I'm happy to carry bags for a little bit of extra money when needed, and it was a great job growing up.
Well, Coach, we so appreciate the time. We're happy to have you here in Detroit, and good luck this season.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, there you go. Drew Petzing, one-on-one with Brooke, and there's a lot to take away from this. I'm not going to break it down for a half hour, but I am going to go into a few things. You know, he talks about initially, Penei Sewell setting the standard, and this is something that's been echoed the last, few days in multiple interviews. Whether it's Brad Holmes or Dan Campbell and now Drew Petzing, they've all said it, right? It's nothing new. It's nothing that's changed. It's not some epiphany, right? Penei Sewell has been setting the standard since day one. And I mean, he's a real pro's pro. He really is. And I know that sounds cliche, but it gets thrown around too easily. Guys like Penei, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, guys like Jared Goff, pro's pro. I mean, true football players, guys that want to execute at the highest level, guys that demand the best out of their teammates, not just because they want to win, but because they execute at such a high level and they want to be the best players that they absolutely can be. Why would you want to practice with someone that is not looking for the same? If another offensive lineman was better than Penei Sewell, I don't think that would change. I think Penei would want to continue to soak, into that player and make that player as best as he could be. Why? It helps the team. Forget the stats. Forget the solo awards. He wants the team to win. He wants the team to be great. He wants the team to execute, again, at the highest levels possible. And I feel like it would be the same thing for a few guys on this roster. I don't believe that the solo stats are the most important thing. I think that they all want each other to play well. And when, you heard it out of J-Mo the other day, I mean, he said multiple things that were hilarious. But when he was talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, he kept, he said one thing that was very, not just eye-opening, but this is how you know that a player is just gifted. This is how you know that they've entered that Barry Sanders kind of an era. And I'm not saying he's Barry Sanders yet, right? He still has some work to do. He has a lot of work to do. But when you hear a player as gifted and talented as Jameson Williams say, I love playing with him, I love watching him play, that tells you how special he is. When J-Mo is off the field, the minor amount of times that he is, and he can actually watch Jahmyr Gibbs do his thing, you heard him, man. He loves it. He absolutely loves it. And he loves probably watching.
I wouldn't even say look at the stats, look at the film.
Watching the film on Jahmyr Gibbs. Who doesn't? It's insane how natural and gifted Jahmyr Gibbs is at what he does. He floats, man. He's like the Muhammad Ali out there. He floats like a butterfly, and then he stings like a bee. Gibbs is electric. There's a lot of players on this offense that are electric and that can do their thing. They're all different. If there's one thing that I look at this team and I look at, each side, you can look at the offense and say, man, we have a different style and a different, tempo and a different type of player in Amon-Ra St. Brown versus what we have in Jameson Williams versus what we have in Isaac Tesla. And that's just the receiver room. And then you look at the backfield and you look at Jahmyr Gibbs and Isaiah Pacheco, both fast guys, both quick. Gibbs is at a different level, but Pacheco's one of the hardest runners out there. And so when you evaluate how Brad Holmes has put this together, you can look at every position, every spot on the field and say we have something different but great in just about every single player. Now, I'm not glazing these guys, but that offense is insane. And it's not just the weaponry that is insane. You start to look at the offensive line, and for whatever reason, they're catching a lot of shade right now at, like Cade Mays because of what happened the other day with Tyreek Williams. Blake Miller had a calf strain for a day, was wearing, compression sleeve. No big deal. It's football, man. It's going to happen. But what you hear when he's on the field and when he's going up against these guys on the defense is that he's holding his own. And Cade Mays readjusted after that, and he held his own for the rest of practice. I listened to a show that just popped up randomly yesterday when I was reading an article about Ben Johnson, which we're going to talk about here in the Chicago Bears in just a moment. And these guys, I don't even know who they are, were saying that last year the offense, it fell back a little bit, but that was only because of the offensive line. The rest of the offense was great. Yeah, there was some drops with J-Mo. And that hurt at times. And his confidence was probably, having a down year because of some of the plays. But overall, that offense was cooking, man. It was one of the best offenses in the league yet again for the third season in a row. And had that offensive line just been a little bit better, it could have even been that better, right? Or that much more better. But what they said at the end of the day is they think that this offensive line that has been so good for so long is going to get back to where it was. So it was good hearing somebody I've never listened to, clearly not Lions fans. They do breakdowns of all sorts of things, and they believe that this offensive line, the way that it's set up, and especially bringing in a guy like Cade Mays, who has really set an example for how to play and what it is to learn a new position at center, which is one of the toughest positions to play in the game of football. It's probably the third, second overall hardest positions, if not the first. For some people think it's the first. And it could be. It very well could be. But if they believe it, based on their analytics and stats and everything that they put together, and then based on the standard and Dan Campbell and Hank Fraley and what the Lions have in Penei Sewell, who's already readjusted at left tackle, I believe it too. And I believe what I've seen and what we're hearing. Offense is going to be fine. They have to stay healthy. Big shout out to Aaron Green this morning. Just joined the Lions faithful. Welcome in, brother. You checking in for the day? I'm going to check in, too. I did not reweigh myself, so I'm still 6'1", 242.8 pounds. Or I was 242.8 pounds last night. I think I was 242.4 in the morning. So officially 20 pounds lost since July 4th of 2026. Then I'm probably going to get down to 215. Like that's a great goal for me is 215. That would be pre-injury weight. So pre-2020, I was in the best shape of my life. Well, in my older life. And so that's where I'm trying to get back to. I'm going to add about 30 pounds of muscle and get back down to where at least I feel comfortable and can do things again. That's the goal. And then I might take y'all on some runs with me once I get my knees working again. When we get out there and start doing some runs, I might take y'all with me through the meta glasses or something and just talk football and try to breathe at the same time. So welcome in, Aaron Green. Appreciate you, man. You get the newbie badge this morning. All right, so let me know what you guys think about Drew Petzing, because a lot of people didn't think that he was going to be a great offensive coordinator. Why? Because they started to overjudge the cover of the book in Arizona. Never judge a cover, right? It's what's inside that matters. I didn't realize that his relationship with Ben Johnson was that deep. Like, I knew he was in his wedding, and I knew that they crossed paths at Boston College, but I didn't know it was that deep. I mean, basically what he just said was they're good friends. They talk often. And that's interesting, because then that means during the time that Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator, which this sounds like they were talking during that time, Drew learned a lot about this offense, didn't he? He learned a lot about things that they were doing. We only played Arizona once that I can remember in the last 3 seasons. And that might have been 23 or 24. And that was it. So I wouldn't think, and I'm going out on a limb here, I don't know this, but I would think that maybe if they're that good of friends, that maybe Ben confided in Drew some things that is more on the other end of inside info for the team. Not a bad thing, not doing anything illegal or anything. There's nothing illegal about that in the NFL. So I would say that Drew's probably learned a lot. Or immoral, not illegal. Immoral, I would say. Not immoral in the NFL. And I think that's a great place to be for a new coach coming into this team. Relationship with Jared Goff, he mentions close relationship. Calling all the time. Why do you think that is? Calling and texting all the time. Morning, noon, and night. And he kind of said it, exactly what I was thinking. Well, I was writing it down, and I said, constant evaluations. Jared Goff is constantly ingrained into this offense, constantly trying to figure out what to do next, how to make it better, how to execute at a higher level. And so when something crosses his brain, you got to get that text right out to Drew, or you got to call him. Hey, this is what I see. I'm watching film. That tells me that Jared Goff, every day, all day, aside from spending time with his newborn, is making sure that he's ready to take this offense to the next level this year. And that's a pretty high bar. Remember, I gave my early prediction that Jared Goff's going to hit 5K this year. And it sounds nutty because our running game is going to be exciting. But that means that this offense might go to a new level that we've never seen in the NFL in a long time. Does anyone know what the most yards in the season is? It is so hard for me to type with my fingers all busted up and giant Band-Aids on them. I'm going to look at the last 20 years. The single season yards in specific categories for an NFL regular season since 2006. 5,477 passing yards by Peyton Manning. 2,100 in scrimmage yards by Chris Johnson. And 2,097 by Adrian Peterson. 1,964 receiving yards by Kelvin Johnson. But what I want to look at is for one offense. We'll see what it comes up with. So anyway, to kind of finish on Drew Petzing, his growth from other coaches. Like, this is something that I highlighted in my write-ups of Drew Petzing. I put 3 together. If you haven't subscribed to DetroitFootballJournal.com, now's the time. I'm giving out random 1-year subscriptions for free. I'm giving out 30-day free trials for anybody that signs up. We've had a lot of new subscribers over the last few days, and I'll get you guys handled by the weekend. I usually, Sunday night, I try to go in every night and make sure that I get everybody comped. So check it out and go back to January, because January is when I wrote up multiple things on Drew Petzing. Back in May is when I was predicting what Jahmyr Gibbs' contract was going to be. And I can't believe, I mean, everyone thought I was crazy for the numbers that I was putting up, but sounds like it's going to happen. So the most overall scrimmage yards, at least according to this research, in the last 20 years was the Denver Broncos in 2013. 7,445 yards. How does that compare to the Lions and Jared Goff? It's close. It is close. So if the Denver Broncos had 74-45, the Lions' biggest season since 2023, 69-62 in 2024, 500 yards off. And it is a franchise record in 2024. 4,718 passing yards, 2,488 rushing yards. So if Jared Goff gets to that 5,000 that I'm predicting, that is going to get us 282 yards closer. We need another 200 yards on the ground to make that happen. And I think that Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't had his best season yet. If he goes for 1,500 this year and Pacheco chips in, you know, another 700, 800, we're going to get close. We're going to get really close. Maybe we break it, maybe we don't, but those are the types of goals that I could see happening, not at the expense of scoring and not at the expense of winning football games. That's the most important. I think removing the fourth down from the offense's equation and you're continuing to go on fourth down, that's adding more yards. Remember, back then, Peyton Manning, he didn't go on fourth down all the time like we are. Right? These guys did that through the first 3 downs for the majority of the time. And that's just another interesting takeaway out of all this. So Drew Petzing comes to Detroit with experience from Jonathan Gannon. He's been using the Kyle Shanahan, style of a playbook. He's been around some elite minds in the league. I don't have my article up, but it's all in there. He's coached with Kevin Stefanski, Jonathan Gannon, Mike Zimmer, Ben Johnson at Boston College. Obviously now with Dan Campbell. He's coached as he was a VA at Harvard. He's a GA at Boston College, and then he was a linebackers coach at Yale. So you want to talk about a smart guy. The guy's incredibly intelligent. I think he has degrees in economics, math, and psychology. And it's a psychology one that I feel a lot of coaches have, or a lot of coaches A lot of coaches take those types of courses in college or throughout their playing career. They take those courses in college, and the reason and through while they're in college, obviously it lends to the credibility for most coaches to understand psychology. How do you get the best out of your players? Oh, we got breaking news. We got breaking news. All right, just reported a little bit ago, Jahmyr Gibbs is back at practice, and he is taking reps. This is a big development. It does not mean that a deal has been done. It could also mean that a deal has been done. Now, if you remember, hold on, let me back all that up. Initial statement was taking reps. Gibbs is at practice in uniform, and as the Lions break into their stretch lines, Dan Campbell walked with his arm around Gibbs, and a couple of other staffers stopped by to offer words. This is according to Justin Rogers on Twitter. No individual drills for Gibbs, but he's doing acclimation work with a trainer off to the side, and that's not unusual. So maybe it's not good breaking news. I thought we had better breaking news than that. No reps yet. Shoot. Here's what it could mean. Let me give you my 2 cents on this one. Not that it matters. Let me give you my 2 cents on this one. Acclimation work. So if Gibbs has not been in practice now for over a week, he has not participated in pads, he's in uniform, but is he in pads? He must be if he's in uniform. I'm just going out on a limb. Is he in pads? Let me ask the question. See if we get a response. If a deal is getting done or almost done, or maybe it is done, Gibbs would probably be doing the same type of work. And that is the acclimation portion. He has to acclimate for 3 or 4 days before he can be in pads. That is how the NFL does this. So Gibbs wouldn't be just launched right into the tackling portion of practice and taking hits. He can do walkthroughs, he can do all that stuff, but he has to acclimate for a few days. So this either means that there is a good possibility that a deal is done, or that it's in its final stretch. And I'll even go out and say this. It could also mean that Brad Holmes just said, dude, we're not extending you. It's not happening. You're going to have to wait till next year. So you can either sit out the season and we'll put you on IR, or go practice. There could be that development too. And I see both sides 50-50 right now, because Brad yesterday did not look happy about any of this. So we'll see what happens. But I would like to hope that they got a deal done. I would like to hope that a deal's done and he's going to get out there. So I think this is a good opportunity probably to go right into Jonathan Taylor's deal. Let me get it pulled up. All right, so the Colts and Jonathan Taylor agreed on a big-time contract extension. This was a 2-year deal worth $44 million and has a max value of $47 million. Honestly, a 2-year deal wouldn't be that bad for Jahmyr Gibbs if the Lions were, considering to put a Band-Aid on this thing. And just to get him out there and give him some more guarantee, that wouldn't be a bad deal for either side. I don't know if Gibbs would take it. But here's Ian Rappaport. He says the Colts and the star running back Jonathan Taylor have agreed to terms on a big-time 2-year, $44 million extension for him and Adam. 47 mils the max, 39 million guaranteed. The largest third contract for a running back ever and one of the highest paid ever. Deal done by at Malakakwa, or whatever his name is, Malkakawa. Man, I blew that up. A first-round management. So how does that compare to Bijan Robinson? God, it sucks not being able to type. In a nutshell, Bijan Robinson had up to $75 million on a 3-year deal. $66.75 million was the total 3-year deal minimum, the base value. So that is 22.25, 22 and a quarter. This is only $250,000 less than Bijan Robinson. And if Jonathan Taylor just got $22 million, do you think that Gibbs is going to get less? There ain't no way. Ain't no way. Not happening. By the time that Gibbs is done, man, he's going to be doing
Stacking.
according to JMO.
Because he the best of the best.
And absolutely,
I wouldn't even say look at the stats, look at the film.
100%, this deal is going to be incredible. All right, let's see what you guys are talking about. Put a poll question up. What group has the biggest season, offense or defense? Cynthia says, yes, maybe a shorter deal for now. Lions still got a lot of players to pay. Maybe those other teams paid their running backs high dollar because they don't have as many mouths to feed. That is a fantastic point. It's a fantastic point. Why don't we bring that up, actually? Why don't we bring that up? Let's get into some Spotrac for a moment. Now let's take a look at some of the team's cap. I just got to find it. I got to find the overall cap. Okay. This is a great sheet by Spotrac. This really helps to kind of break things down year by year by year. And so let's just look at the next couple of seasons. So right now, the Dallas Cowboys, they have the most cap allocated for 2026 at $368 million. How far down do you think the Lions are? You see four teams on the board right now. Lions are in 7th. They have $344 million going out. Next year, is this going to... Yeah, it'll work. There we go. Next year, the Lions fall all the way down, like way down the list with current cap allocations. Now, what I don't have in front of me is how many players do they have currently signed. And I think next year we had 39 or 40 players already under contract. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 at Tennessee, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So the Lions have the 22nd most cap allocated in 2027. So where does Atlanta fall into that? Atlanta is all the way at the bottom. They have the 31st most cap allocated out of all teams in 2027. The question is, how many players do they have signed, right? How many players? Well, look at Indy. They're just a few spots above them. They have like the 27th most cap allocated. So those two teams can absolutely afford what they're doing right now. Let's take a brief look at Atlanta. They have 91 players on the roster, so they must have an IPP player. I want to know overall here. Let's take a look at their cap in 2027. They have 49 players signed in 27. That is insane that they have that many players signed. Let's go to Indianapolis. They have 50 players signed, and they're at the bottom. These two teams are at the bottom of cap allocation for 2027. Let's go to the Lions. Lions have 41 players signed, so we're in a good spot. We're only 12 players off the top 53, and we're only 10 players off the top 51. So we're in a great spot, but we happen to be at the upper range of all cap allocations for 2027. All right, let's go to 2020. Let's go to 28. Lions still have 35 players signed. Let's go to Atlanta. They have 36 players signed. Hold on, what was the Lions again? 35. Atlanta has 36. And they have 161.7 going out. The Lions have, 120 million more. The Lions have $120 million more going out than Atlanta does in 28. So these are all relevant numbers that matter. These are the numbers that people don't look at. Your normal talking heads, they just don't evaluate these things. What about Indy? In 2028, they're at 191, 24th in the league. 42 players signed, 7 more than either one of us, Atlanta or Detroit, right? 7 more. Let's go back to Atlanta. They're 30th. They have the 30th lowest cap allocations in 2028. Lions, 6th. And that is without Jahmyr Gibbs, that is without Brian Branch, and that is without Sam Laporta signed. Do you guys see the convergence? Now do you know why I said in 2027 we're going to end up losing somebody? It almost has to happen. I get it that the league is going to increase the salary cap year over year over year. It's just never going to be enough to catch up. So now that you see that, this is why things are so tough. So great statement, Cynthia. And that just put us into a really good conversation and why things are different for the Lions. It's not as easy for the Lions to just sign these players. This is why they're not out signing those $50 million edge rushers. It would never happen. It was never going to happen unless it would have been some stupid, ridiculous trade and then the Lions didn't have to pay much, salary cap. Then or much of their salary, which would never happen. It would never happen. This is why you come to Rock Down Detroit Lions to get the real news, the real information. Great statement, Cynthia. All right, let me wind back. Atlanta has emptied their bank. What does that mean? They emptied their bank. Well, they haven't had to put anything in it so far. Robbie put in a super chat, $5. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. He says, what if Ben Johnson's offense we saw was actually the Drew Petzing offense, which is why Ben exploded on the scene so quickly. Whew. Whoo-wee. That's a crazy statement. But I don't think you're that far off from some of the things that I've been wondering myself. I was told by a certain somebody about 6, 7, 8 months ago, whatever it was now, whenever we hired Drew, that Drew was better than Ben. And had Drew been given the keys to the offense of the Detroit Lions in 2020, what was it, 23, whatever it was for Ben, 23, 22, that it wouldn't have been much different. And it might have been even better. So I think they're going to know each other well, right? They know each other well. So the Bears and the Lions matchups, I mean, it's going to come down to defense. Unless, one quarterback or the other doesn't have a good game, which Caleb Williams right now, we'll transition to NFC North here in just a second, doesn't have a good game. But I think what you're saying here is maybe Ben was taking some of Drew's plays, possibly, quite possibly. Now we still have to see Drew Petzing operate on game day in Detroit. But what I'm confident in is how he operated on game day with the Cardinals. Just because he didn't have a high-flying offense and he had a lot of injuries on offense, you didn't see the best of the best. And Harrison Jr. is just terrible. I know I might be out on a limb on that, but I don't think he's that great of a receiver. He's definitely not as dynamic as Jameson Williams. He's not as dynamic as Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he hasn't shown up yet. He's had a decent season. I think 885 yards was his best season so far. And it just has not impressed me enough. So he wasn't working with a lot. He had Greg Dortch for a little bit, and then he had Trey McBride. He had James Conner for a little bit, and then he was injured. I mean, so you got to go back and take Arizona's offense with a grain of salt and really look at what Drew did with a depleted offense. And their offensive line was okay. It wasn't even the best offensive line. Yeah, I think it was game 7, Robbie. I think they fired Lynn in like the 5th or 6th game. And I think Dan Campbell took it over. And then it was the next year in 23 that Ben Johnson was named the official OC. But as word has traveled, through solo cup to solo cup with a string on the end or in between, that Dan still had his hands all up in that. Like 24 was probably the halfway through 24 and all of 25, Ben Johnson was full go. I mean, he was always full go in 23, but anyway, rumors are that Dan was still involved in a lot of decision making. But Ben had his fingerprints all over the style of the offense. Clearly. Very clearly. Aaron Green says his agent wouldn't like it, but I would give him up to $25 million in incentives with a reasonable base salary. I think what you're going to see is Gibbs' deal is going to mimic very closely to Bijan Robinson. I think the numbers are going to be pretty much on pace. As I put out my other prediction the other day, I should have snipped it. Maybe if I get some time today, I'll snip it, but I got caught up yesterday in doing graphics. I just need to be done doing graphics because it takes so much of my time. And if we didn't have all this house stuff going on throughout the spring, like I'd be so much further ahead. But I got really ahead this year, a lot further than normal. Good questions this morning. Make sure if you really want me to see something, you put it in caps. That's what I look for. Arthur says Bears offense on scripted plays last year was awful in the first quarter. Bears offense was at its best late in games when Williams calling own plays. Just a fact statistically. I don't know that Caleb Williams was calling his own plays. He was off structure. I mean, he was all off structure. He was just running around, trying to create. You don't want your quarterback running around like that. And that was an indictment on the offensive line, clearly from the year before. And last year, he took like a third of the sacks he did in his first season, which is a huge improvement. But this offensive line, again, another center, no Ozzie Trapillo. 2/5 of this offensive line has changed again for the Bears. Caleb Williams having to relearn, everything again with another center. It's not easy. But Caleb Williams running around last year was not a good answer. He threw more interceptions running around on those fourth downs than I think he did throughout any other play. He wasn't making good decisions. Yes, he had some highlight reel plays. But again, those are few and far between. He probably had 7 plays last year that you just won't see again. You won't see him again. They're that rare. I don't want rare. What does Dan Campbell always say about splash? It's great to have some splash early. You will not live in the NFL long enough if all you are is splash. You need consistency. They need to see who you are down in and down out. The splash is great when you need it, but splash doesn't deliver wins. Consistency does. And I can't say definitively that Caleb Williams grew in any consistent manner last year. And this year, let's just kind of go through what the Bears Wire's talking about. We'll do a little breakdown on the Bears so far. All right. Let's do an NFC North report right after we get a word from SportsSpider.
The season is here, and you want the latest news and rumors on your Detroit Lions. Head to SportsSpider.com. That's sports, SPYDER.com, where you can get your Lions news and all your sports in one place. Man, this site is packed with your favorite podcasts, live news, articles from local writers, and insiders, all updating in real time. Not just the Lions, every major sports team, including MMA, UFC, and so much more. Don't want to waste time searching? Sign up for free. Create your ultimate sports news hub. You control what hits your feed at SportsSpider, your number one source for all your sports. Visit SportsSpider.com today, right after the show.
All right, let's do a little NFC North report. So far through a week of camp, there's been a lot of ups and a lot of downs for every team in the NFC North, including injuries, explosive plays already. But what is really happening with the Chicago Bears right now? Ben Johnson's, second full season as a head coach. Caleb Williams' third season as a quarterback. You would expect a tremendous amount of growth from everybody involved. The news so far is TJ Edwards was activated from NFI, and then he's going to be eased back into the training camp after suffering a minor muscle strain. Kobe Bryant's knee injury is going to sideline him probably 8 to 12 weeks. Major free agent acquisition. It was the player that I wanted the Lions to grab. Looks like Brad Holmes maybe escaped one there. Bryant suffered a hyperextension, a bone bruise, and a small fracture during practice a couple of days ago. As far as the rest of the injury portion of the Bears training camp so far, Kyler Gordon remains on PUP. Ozzie Trapillo more than likely going to be out the entire season. Shamar Turner remains sidelined with an ACL rehab. Keyshawn Elliott still on PUP. Noah Sewell still on PUP. Luther Burden returned after absorbing a heavy hit on Tuesday. Joe Thuney received a veteran rest day on Wednesday. And Grady Jarrett has also received scheduled rest this week. As far as the offensive headlines, Caleb Williams has struggled through many portions of practice so far in training camp. There's also been other reports saying that he's playing well or that he rebounded during yesterday's portion of lighter practice. And I want to emphasize light, and I'll explain why in a few moments. He did complete 8 of 9 red zone plays. But when I mean light, we're talking 7-on-7 light, not 11-on-11. And there's a major distinction here. When you are in 7-on-7, it is initially for coaches and players to learn their spacing, find their landmarks. You're focusing on execution. Pretty easy to execute when you're missing 4 players on both sides of the field. Williams threw 4 touchdowns during that red zone period, again during 7-on-7. Caden Davis produced a spectacular one-handed touchdown, and Davis is starting to become Chicago's latest preseason roster riser. Luther Burden resumed some of his work without any visible limitations on Wednesday after taking a tank of a hit on Tuesday. And he has been a bright spot for Chicago's offense so far this season. Chicago's offense did respond after Tuesday's difficult session, and when I say difficult, it was very difficult. Ben Johnson, the other day, had the audacity to compare Luther Burden to Jahmyr Gibbs. Luther Burden to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Initially, it just seemed a little bit grimy to me. Now, he did say he had a lot of respect for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but let's just take a quick listen on what he said in this exchange.
Detroit, who I have a strong affinity for. He plays the game the same way. I feel that from Luther, and I know he wasn't a full-time starter for us a year ago, but the snaps that he did had, he's got that competitive edge and desire to be great, and it's carried over throughout the spring and summer as well. He's been a regular in the building. He's been working with our strength staff. Wants to be the most conditioned player on the team. Wants to be one of the strongest receivers on the team.
That wasn't the full interview, but that was your snippet. Yes, Attila, we know. We put it out there that he's back at camp doing individual ramp-up stuff. He's not taking reps. He's not on the field doing anything else, as reported about 30 minutes ago. So working with the trainer off to the side. He's not in an 11-11, 7-on-7, 5-on-5s. He's not doing individuals. He's not doing anything other than getting a workout in. What does it mean? We'll find out by the end of the day if it means anything significant. But right now, it sounds like he's just doing like a Kirby and a Brian Branch kind of thing. He's just getting some work in on the on the outside of practice. Or I'm sorry, on the outside of the practice field, on the sideline. As far as the rest of Bears camp, there's some big time camp battles going on. Braxton Jones still remains left tackle favorite. Jedrick Willis, one of the players that I was very interested in for the Lions to bring in for this offensive line, remains a reclamation candidate at left tackle. Theo Benedict received first-team work during the veteran rest periods. Kieran Amadagaji remains part of the tackle competition. Garrett Bradbury currently leads the rookie Logan Jones at center. Jalen Jones leads the nickel battle while Gordon is still going through rehab. And then Dylan Thieneman is cross-training on the inside at the nickel position. Thieneman's versatility this year could offset Kobe Bryant's absence. Deo Odebingo, which, let me back up, that is a development right now. The fact that they pushed Dylan Thieneman down to the nickel is interesting. He should be up there at the free safety post position. That is what he ran the best in college, and I assume that he's going to get a lot more snaps there, but we'll see where this develops. He's a thumper, man. He's a hitter in the run game. I really like Thieneman's game. Putting him down in the nickel, trailing the slot, that is another interesting development again for the Bears here in training camp so far. Deo Odebingo remains central, obviously, to the Chicago's pass rush question, and Austin Booker still having to provide some meaningful pressure opposite of Montez Sweat. Hold on here. Let's hit the old F11 and go. There we go. Let's get into full screen. I'll back up a little bit. Give me one sec. And one of the biggest things is these settings change. It changed all the sizes of my screens. Trying to fit things in boxes is just not as easy as it was. All right, on the offensive side of the football, like I said, Caleb Williams rebounded from a lighter, kind of a tragic practice on Tuesday. He was struggling big time. But during Wednesday's walkthrough periods, the lighter portion of practice, he bounced back. But again, I'm not going to say that Caleb Williams is playing extremely good football right now until we start to see some 11-on-11 periods and how he takes command of this offense or doesn't. As far as the stock report right now, they're saying that Caleb Williams is rising. I don't think so. I don't think that he's done enough. There's been too many bad days versus the good days, but it's also early. It's just week 1. They really haven't done a ton. Maybe next week when things really start to ramp up, or in this second week that we're now entering for all teams, we'll see where he separates. Caden Davis is absolutely rising. Jalen Jones is rising. TJ Edwards is now returning. Chicago's safety depth is starting to fall apart. That is why they're moving other players around like Dylan Thieneman. Kobe Bryant's injury is critical. Obviously, the left tackle and center positions are still unsettled. I do expect Bradbury to win that position, and I do expect Braxton Jones to win that position outright when we get to 53. That's really all I have for an update for Chicago, except for this other piece. Where is it? Where'd it go? Oh, no, I think I closed it. All right, let me take a brief break. I got to find this. I'll be right back.
Throwing middle, caught inside the 5. Jameer Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Pressured by Hutchinson. He goes down again.
All right, as we know, Ben Johnson left the Detroit Lions 2 seasons ago. And there was a recent report that has said that the Lions offense and the team in general may have already closed their Super Bowl window because of Ben Johnson's departure, and that the Lions aren't going back. I highly disagree, but I'm going to read you this article and tell you what they're talking about because it doesn't make sense to me. It says that the Lions are entering their second season without Ben Johnson. The now Chicago Bears head coach spent 6 seasons on the Lions coaching staff, including 3 as offensive coordinator from 2022 to 2024. Ben Johnson was the mastermind behind Detroit's dynamic offense that took the league by storm. This led to Johnson landing the Bears head coaching job in 2025. In his debut season with the Bears, Johnson led Chicago to a division title. Let me hit the pause button there real quick. You had the most wins, yes. You played a fourth place schedule, yes. And, well, you only were handed the NFC North sitting on the couch, Ben. Now you have to play real competition, like the Lions have been doing for 3 straight seasons. We'll see if you can get another division title or if you can even win 7 games this year. So anyway, they talk about the 40-year-old is already one of the best young coaches in the NFL. Nah.
You sure about that?
No.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Look, this isn't just hate. I'm not just hating on the guy. But what I am saying is he was one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. Absolutely. 1 season, and you're already saying that this guy is one of the best head coaches in the NFL? Come on, give me a break. Let him get into the league a couple years. It took Dan Campbell 3 years before anyone started to talk that way about Dan. And even then, he's been snubbed many times for getting Coach of the Year, which he should have had at least twice. Ben Johnson took over a team that was loaded. Dan took over a team that was depleted. Big difference. Now, on the other hand, the Lions missed the playoffs in their first year without Johnson. And I don't believe that Johnson had anything to do with it. I believe what happened is injuries, once again, obviously, one of the most injured teams in the league, an offense that was still just as good without Ben Johnson. As far as statistically, the Lions were a top 3 offense in the league. Highest scoring offense in the league. Second or third most yards in the league. Did they take a step back? Yes, on the offensive line. Ben Johnson had nothing to do with the offensive line. The loss of players is where the Lions lost a step. They didn't lose a step because Ben Johnson departed. Was the offense as fluid? No, but most offenses aren't when you bring in a new offensive coordinator. And Johnny Moe just happened to be the worst of the worst additions, probably to any team at that position. Never called plays before. I'm still scratching my head how this even happened. Now, there's a chance that the Lions missed their opportunity to bring a Lombardi home because of Ben Johnson and Ben Johnson's departure. Like it's just never going to happen in Detroit because of Ben Johnson. We're putting way too much on Ben Johnson here. My question to you is, do you believe that Ben Johnson's departure closed this proverbial window on the Lions having even a shot at winning a Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments. According to this writer, Luke Esterling, he laid out how each NFL team can win the Super Bowl in 2026. And for the Lions, he believes Dan Campbell's group has no chance unless Ben Johnson returns. I'm wondering if Easterling is a Bears fan because he added that the Lions are more likely to see Johnson win a championship with the Bears before they are. And yes, that is a gut-wrenching assessment, but I also believe it has to be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. After the Lions blew a major lead against the San Francisco 49ers game in the NFC Championship game in 2024, Dan Campbell told his team that they may have blown their best chance to bring home the title. Look, he wasn't lying. It is very difficult to get to the NFC Championship game or the AFC Championship game. It is very difficult to get to a Super Bowl. A lot of teams don't repeat or rinse and repeat year to year to year. Dan Campbell's quote was, "I told those guys this may have been our only shot." It rubbed people the wrong way. Dan was also quoted as saying, "Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware, and it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year." End quote. Why do you think that is? Whenever you're playing a fourth place schedule, you have the best opportunity. But when you're playing a first place schedule, it is 10 times as hard going through the best teams. You're having to really rely on a lot of hope, a lot of, good, football god help, right? Refs not getting in your business or screwing it all up. But now you fast forward a couple of years, and has that quote been proven true? Yes and no. Why haven't the Lions been back? They got the Lions won the 1 seed the year after. They won 15 games. But they also did that against the first place schedule and lost just about every single player that mattered that wasn't on the offense. Yeah, they failed to get a playoff victory. The most injured team in the league, or second most injured team in the league that year, losing to the Commanders in a game that they were still in until Ben Johnson failed. Ben Johnson made some crap calls. Aaron Glenn failed. Aaron Glenn made some really shady decisions and decided to do what no team did that year outside of the Eagles one time. And that was blitzing Jaden Daniels. In their first meeting, the Eagles did it and they lost. In the second meeting, they didn't and they won. They laid the blueprint, and so did about 10 other teams that year. that laid the blueprint on how to play the Commanders. You don't blitz them. You don't stay in single high post base defense. You had to play more nickel. You had to play more spy, and they didn't. Is that a failure on Dan's part? Yeah, it could be. If the defensive plan was run by him and he felt like that was okay, yeah, that was a failure on Dan. Had nothing to do with Ben Johnson. On the other side of the football, though, on a 3rd and 1, in scoring, in the scoring zone, if you will, he calls a pass play where Jared Goff gets crushed and ends up throwing an interception. When 90% of the time the Lions were in 3rd and 1, they ran the football twice during that season. Now, it just so happens that when Ben Johnson went to Chicago in his first year, he was one of, I think the Bears were either first or second most calls for a pass on 3rd and 1. So was he just experimenting with his last game with the Lions? Was he just experimenting when he decided to put Jameson Williams back there to throw a football? Because those are things that we didn't do all season. Why did he do it now? Doesn't make any sense. So if anything, Ben Johnson is the reason why the Lions didn't win that game. Now, were there other issues? Were there other fumbles? Were there other interceptions? Yes. But that also was because the offensive line wasn't prepared. The Lions didn't bring in extra offensive linemen to protect Jared Goff, going up against one of the best defenses in the league. There was a lot of failures. There was a lot of injuries, and the Lions needed to play that game different. And there's no excuse for 2024's NFC Championship loss. None, outside of the defense not going into protect mode or winning to protect mode in playing this quasi-prevent defense and not getting after the 49ers, not protecting the lead. Obviously, the Lions have new motivation this year. They're ready to bounce back. They have the team to bounce back. They have the coaches to do it. And they're going to make some noise. They're going to make a lot of noise. But if you believe that there is a chance that the Lions have already peaked and that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes' run is done in Detroit after this season if they don't make it deep into the playoffs at a minimum, and that Ben Johnson is the reason, then I don't think you understand who this team is here in 2026. But Ben Johnson is not the reason that the Lions have lost, and Ben Johnson is not the reason if the Lions don't win a Super Bowl under Dan Campbell. All of that responsibility falls on Dan, and at the end of the day, it falls on the Lions as a whole. Ben Johnson could go do whatever the hell he wants in Chicago. He's going to get his ass kicked 2 times again this year anyway. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below about this video, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, so we're going to move forward. Obviously, you can tell I'm a little bit hot that there's individuals out there claiming that Ben Johnson is our answer, was the only answer. And I get it. Things look different last year. They look different for a multitude of reasons. But it's not because of Ben Johnson, man. It's just not. It's because they made a bad decision. They waited too long to bring in an offensive coordinator. They tried to just carbon copy what was already happening with the offense and did not bring in an innovator. They brought in Johnny Morton. It sounded like a great opportunity at the beginning, but we didn't know that the dude never called plays until like 8 weeks into him being there. And then we found out he was going up in the box, and I already told y'all that crap wasn't going to work. Jared Goff and that offense and those players, they depended on their coach to be on the sideline to have conversations, to be able to talk it out, not phone down, and play the telephone game. That crap don't work. For some coaches that are really good in the box, it can work. For teams that have been doing that religiously year in and year out, you get used to it. But to make that big of a change in the offseason and then to carry it into the regular season where it wasn't working and you doubled down. It did. Johnny Mo was the problem. Dan Campbell's fault for bringing the guy in. Drew Petzing was the best thing that has happened to this team. And I think it's going to be a fun year watching Drew just walk all over these Bears and everybody else. All right, when I get back, we're going to jump into the Packers breakdown. And I think we also have another development here. I don't know if you guys already talked about it in the chat, but I just had an alert that Tyler Conklin appears back in camp as well. Yeah, Tyler Conklin was back at practice as well today. Passed his physical yesterday. Hey, there we go. Mike P., member for 23 months, the elite club level, man. Big shout out to you, brother. Appreciate you. Says, I love this morning's cast. Getting ready for the week with some smack. Kind of have to. You know, every once in a while, I gotta have a little energy. What I forgot was, I forgot to put me on. I was getting on fire, man. I was getting heated. Starting to bring the temperature up a little bit. All right, I'm taking a brief break. I'll be right back.
Throwing middle, caught inside the 5. Jahmyr Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Jared takes the snap back, looking, throwing middle. Got Amon-Ra inside the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Nice job.
Mariota's got it back. Pressure comes. He's hit. Slips out of it. Rolling to his right. Now he's going down. Brian Branch got him. Hutchinson, he goes down again.
Okay, next up, let's get into a Packers review real quick and see what's happening over in Green Bay. Top headlines out of Green Bay right now. Green Bay is between practice blocks at the time of this report before Friday's family night. Oh, what? Family night? What's that? Anyone know what family night is? Because we haven't had one in about 6 years. Now, we're getting some sort of a Lions loyal member food and stuff where they give us the bobblehead for Jameson Williams. I got my tickets the next morning, but it's the same thing they did last year. We didn't need tickets for it. You got there, you got your stuff, and you left. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was just the Lions showing us their new food opportunity or options at the stadium. Family night's different because family night is where everybody's involved. And we would go to Ford Field, and that is where I met Roger Goodell at the last time we had a family day. Roger Goodell came down to my seats, had an opportunity to take some pictures, talk with him for a few minutes. Each one of my kids were there and had an opportunity to meet him. Shaking hands with billionaires, there's nothing wrong with that. May not agree with everything he does, but it was a good opportunity. He was coming around and saying, hi and thank you to all, the Lions loyal members and others, everyone that, wanted to meet with him had an opportunity to. But for him to actually walk down to my seats was pretty cool. I wish the Lions would do it again, because I think it's important for the fans. So anyway, Friday night, Green Bay is going to have family night. Packers defense so far has controlled much of camp, as expected, as I mentioned about the Lions, that they're also controlling much of camp. Jonathan Gannon has a very aggressive approach right now, and he's creating a lot of momentum in Green Bay. Green Bay's offense must reduce the turnover-worthy mistakes. There's been plenty so far through the first week. And then family night becomes the first kind of game-like evaluation they're going to put on a full scrimmage there on Friday night. As far as injuries, Micah Parsons still unavailable due to his rehab. Tucker Kraft has been activated from PUP. Kraft still limited to individual drills and walkthrough work while he goes through his ramp-up period. Luke Musgrave remains sidelined. Javon Hargrave remains unavailable. And Devonta Wyatt's absence has reduced the defensive line depth. And Chris Brooks still sidelined as well, but the tight end injuries have forced Green Bay into roster additions. Even though their defense is missing a lot of players, they are creating a lot of problems right now for the offense and Jordan Love. As far as the offensive line battles, Jordan Morgan has definitely secured the starting left tackle role. Morgan is impressed during the padded portion so far in the first week. Yeager Burton is rising among the Packers reserve linemen. Jacob Monk is continuing to strengthen his interior line case, and the offensive line shuffling remains necessary because of multiple injuries. Green Bay's top reserve group is really beginning to separate itself. Kind of what we see with Detroit, too. Our reserve group is really starting to separate itself from the bottom of the roster. For the skill positions in the battles that are happening right now in Green Bay, Marshawn Lloyd has earned significant preseason work. Lloyd also has to prove that his body can handle the sustained work, which would be a big development for Green Bay this year. Josh Wiley is receiving increased tight end opportunities due to injury. Drake Dabney has become one of camp's fastest improvers. And Trey Smacks, talking about Smack, his kicking operation still remains under evaluation. Green Bay is starting to study Smack's preferred holding setup to be able to give him a better opportunity. There's been a lot of discussion on just how to hold the damn football in Green Bay. Things that you would think are elementary are not up there. The risers on defense, Anthony Campbell is surging. Campbell's size and pass deflections are creating a lot of attention. And, of course, you have a depleted defensive tackle rotation right now, so he's getting a lot of looks. Brandon Cease, I think he was a second-round draft pick this year, has continued to emerge in Gannon's secondary. Baron Sorrell has produced a pick six against Jordan Love. Not surprised. And Green Bay's defense versatility is becoming its defining camp story, a lot like Detroit. As far as the stock report right now, Jordan Morgan, Anthony Campbell, Brandon Cease, Drake Dabney, all rising. Tucker Kraft limited right now, really nothing to report. Critical, Micah Parsons in recovery, and the concern right now is the offensive turnovers throughout camp. Even with a depleted defense, Jordan Love and that offense are turning the ball over way too much. Next up, we'll do the Minnesota Vikings. Their top headlines right now. They're off today after Wednesday's very physical padded practice, probably the most physical practice they've had yet. Kyler Murray has created some separation at the quarterback competition. Murray has displayed stronger processing, movement, and deep accuracy compared to J.J. McCarthy. That doesn't mean he's a great quarterback. It just means he's better of the worst situation. J.J. McCarthy has been very inconsistent in attacking downfield, and his processing speed still remains the central concern for the Vikings. Carson Wentz remains part of Minnesota's quarterback depth equation, and quite honestly, Wentz might be better than McCarthy right now. Is there really an opportunity that Wentz could make this roster simply because they don't trust McCarthy? I'm not saying that McCarthy won't make the roster. I'm just thinking that the Packers may keep three. And then again, they may not have to, because Carson Wentz is a vet, and he will proudly stay on the vet squad and not leave the Green Bay Packers, understanding that he could be in a game this year. And that might be my hottest take of the day. Will Carson Wentz play more than 4 games this season? My stock is up on that call. As far as the injuries concerns in Minnesota, Caleb Banks continues a very controlled ramp-up period after his foot surgeries this offseason. Demond Claiborne returned from a minor injury. Claiborne did resume return duties and second-team offensive work right away after he got back. Minnesota has avoided any real major camp injury news other than Harrison Smith's unresolved status continuing to affect the safety planning. That's really not an injury to report. Offensive camp battles. Gavin Bartholomew leads Ben Urosic in the receiving production. Max Bredesen is receiving work at fullback. Thomas Rymick is becoming an offensive line roster sleeper. And Minnesota's offense continues searching for consistent quarterback rhythm. Murray's experience, at least right now, is giving him the competitive advantage. As far as the defensive camp battles are concerned, Charles Demings is emerging as Minnesota's surprise rookie corner. Demings has competed very well. Has been effective against even the most established receivers in Minnesota. And then there's Joe Huber. He has strengthened his defensive line roster case after having a very impressive first week in camp. Levi Drake Rodriguez has also been impressing during the trench periods. The run defense delivered one of the best practices on Wednesday. It was their strongest performance so far of the week. And the safety communication, like I said, without Harrison, it's unsettled and somewhat of a problem. Dallas Turner, Jonathan Greenard headline a very thin edge rotation this year. What was once a strength for Minnesota, that it seems like they're struggling this year to put it together. Special teams. Claiborne still remains a legit kickoff return candidate. Miles Price remains part of the return competition, and then special teams value could secure several final roster positions very soon. Minnesota's return on Friday will be another open practice. As far as the stock report in Minnesota, I hate to say it, but Kyler Murray, Charles Demings, Thomas Rymick, and Gavin Bartholomew are all rising. Obviously, in the recovering status, Caleb Banks. Under pressure right now is J.J. McCarthy. And the unsettled portion of the Minnesota roster is safety and edge depth. I'm good with that. I'm good if they got problems on the edge and in the back. I'm good. So that is your NFC North report for the other three. Now, as far as the overall verdict right now, the Lions currently own the deepest roster, but they do carry the division's busiest injury room to date. Chicago delivered the biggest positive quarterback update of the week. However, it was 7-on-7. It was backyard football. It was installation. Not impressed. Chicago also absorbed the division's most damaging current injury. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers defense is currently ahead of its offense, as is the same in Detroit. Minnesota's quarterback battle still remains the division's biggest decision. Obviously, with Jahmyr Gibbs, probably one of the biggest headlines right now is the negotiations are still happening, but that is the division's biggest contract storyline headed into the second week of camp. Chicago's offensive line battles remain its greatest structural concern, and Green Bay's star recoveries could determine its early season ceiling. I think their season doesn't necessarily hinge on Micah Parsons, but the quickest they get him back, the better. He's expected to miss at least the first 4 weeks of the season. Minnesota's quarterback choice will define its entire offensive direction, and yes, I believe that Carson Wentz has an opportunity to play this season. As far as the Lions, I'll give you a quick update on the biggest, headline hitters right now. But I want to go back to Minnesota for a moment. Because there is a Hall of Famer, former running back by the name of Adrian Peterson. He had some thoughts on J.J. McCarthy. And his thoughts really echo much of what the Vikings fan base has been saying throughout much of the 2025 season and into 2026. If McCarthy is going to win the job, then he needs to sharpen up his game and do it now. And it's not happening. It just hasn't been happening for JJ McCarthy, unfortunately. Unfortunately. Here's what Adrian Peterson had to say. On the topic of McCarthy's decision making, he offered up his thoughts saying, quote, I feel like he has the potential to be an outstanding quarterback. But some of his decision making, from my own perspective, I'm just like, come on now. I know it's not saying a lot, but it's kind of saying a lot, right? There are certain things that you just can't do. There's certain things that, that you need to do. Me watching the Vikings last year, there were times when I was like, come on, you're better than that. I think that's a big indictment on McCarthy's growth. The decision-making, obviously, so far has not been great. He has been unable to push the ball downfield with any consistency. And that was my biggest takeaway on McCarthy going to the Vikings in 2023. Or 2024, excuse me, when I said that McCarthy was never a fourth quarter quarterback. He ran the football. He was a running back playing quarterback in the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, you need to be able to throw the football. When you're down, you need to be able to execute big plays. You need to be able to limit your time coming off the clock to be able to have more possessions. And so far, McCarthy has not proven that he can push the ball downfield. Every once in a while, he has a really good throw. And then he'll have 6 sprays of buckshot all over the field. And then the decision-making is just not adding up to where you would expect him to be right now. This is why Kyler Murray is leading the room. And this is why I also believe that Carson Wentz, being that very steady Eddie, veteran quarterback who's definitely been in the league too long already, has an opportunity to play. I think it's going to be the quarterback situation that is going to really blow apart the Viking season. We'll see what happens, man. We're just a few weeks away from the regular season. Preseason's coming up, and I do believe that Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy are going to be out there for the Vikings. I don't believe that Kevin O'Connell has the same idea about preseason that Dan Campbell does. I think that he wants to get his guys out there to see what they can do. He's not worried about injuries because if you don't know who your guys are, then it doesn't matter. All right, I still didn't see an update today for a press conference. Apparently, we're just not going to have one today. All right, with that, let me dip into the chat. Question from Major Payne says, will I be able to watch... Oh, question for y'all. Will I be able to watch the Lions with Sunday Ticket for games that aren't streamed on Amazon? Great question. So it's funny. I just went through this with my dad in the car when we were going to the game on Sunday because I was interested to see, where all the games are going to be played this year. Which channels. And so I pulled down a full list. Let me find it for you. It was a good breakdown. I was looking at the cost, for subscriptions. What do I need? Because every year, I bought an antenna because I don't like paying for cable, but we get HD kind of quality, antenna work over here. So when I use an antenna, you can pretty much watch, all your local channels, which aligns typically on all the local channels. And then we have Peacock, which they'll be on Peacock. And then, of course, we have Netflix, we have Prime, all that good stuff. Also have, NFL Pro account, which gives you NFL Network. But there's always blackout dates, and you can't watch the Lions on the NFL Network almost any time live. It's crazy. Like, what's the point of paying for it? And then with the Sunday Ticket, the cost of the Sunday Ticket with YouTube TV is $480 for the season. $480 to be able to watch every single Lions game. Here's the breakdown. If you have the YouTube TV, base plan, or Hulu plus Live TV base plan, YouTube is $73 a month. Hulu plus Live is $89 or $90 a month. 16 of the 17 regular season games will be on local broadcasts on Fox, 8 games, CBS, 3 games, NBC, 2 games, ESPN and ABC, 2 games, plus the Week 18 flex game. So what do you need one game for? Amazon. The Lions will be on Amazon Prime for one game in Week 2 versus the Buffalo Bills. So what do? Well, if you get a free trial for Amazon, then you do it and you cancel it if you don't want. I don't know who doesn't have Amazon, but if you have a regular Amazon Prime account, you get Amazon TV. So Amazon is about $15 a month. And then if you were to go with YouTube TV, let's just say, for the rest of the games, you have September, October, November, December, and January, and then, into February if you want to watch all the games. So that is 6 months for just YouTube TV at $73 plus tax. I'm just going to go with 73. Well, we'll go 75. It's $300 for 6 months of YouTube TV. Or $450, excuse me, for YouTube TV for 6 months to be able to get September through February. And then you need Amazon Prime, $465 to watch every game this year, unless you're at the games. Now, that's cheaper than just one ticket to a game, though, right? It's cheaper than just one ticket. However, if you were to get the YouTube TV and the Sunday ticket, you're paying $480, and then you get access to all of the games that are not in your area, and you get YouTube TV, which would give you access to every game. And then all you need is Amazon Prime for one game. So here's the best advice that I can give everybody. If you're willing to spend $500 this year, then you get Sunday ticket and Amazon Prime, because that gives you YouTube TV, Amazon Prime for the Week 2 game, and then the Sunday ticket to be able to watch all the games. Like all 32 teams. Or you just get a damn antenna and hope that you can get all the games. Right? Because there's still another problem. The local in-market fans, if you live in Detroit or in the Detroit broadcast area, you can watch 14 games this year that are airing on Fox, CBS, NBC, and ESPN ABC by subscribing to the YouTube TV base plan or having a really good antenna, that can reach at least 100 miles. Out-of-market fans, if you live outside of Michigan, you can watch 11 of the Sunday afternoon games through the NFL Sunday ticket or YouTube TV plan. So that's what I don't understand about Sunday ticket. They claim to give you every game, but they're only giving you 11. 11 out of 17. Guaranteed if you're outside the state of Michigan. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. So if you're outside of Michigan, it looks like you're going to lose some games, even with Sunday ticket or YouTube TV. If you're inside of Michigan, your best plan is to either run an antenna, which costs you about $80 for a good one, or you get YouTube TV and Sunday ticket, and then get 1 month of Prime. It's the best advice I got for you. I don't know what NFLHD.TV is, but I would be careful of those hacker channels. And the reason why is because if you watch it on a computer, which you typically have to, or a phone or laptop or whatever, they are full of malware. Like there used to be, what do they call it? Crackhead TV, methhead TV, or crack streams or meth streams, some stupid. Does it work? Yeah, but you're clicking so many things and it doesn't always work. And then you're putting your computer at risk that people are going to get your bank information or something else. So I'd be really careful. And then you're always going to want to use a VPN, because if you're using a hack and you don't have a VPN, Believe it or not, it is a major fine. Like it can be into the thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars for just watching a game without paying for it. And if you don't think that the NFL doesn't want their money, they do. They're going to come get it. DAZN, I think that's for out of the United States. We don't have access to that here unless you use a VPN. So if you use a VPN, and again, I haven't set it up, so I don't know the exact way of doing it. But if you use a VPN and then you put your country, let's say in Canada, then you could probably subscribe through DAZN, which I think DAZN is a lot cheaper than everybody else. But I'm not gonna support any of the hack stuff. Please don't put links or anything like that in the chat. And then YouTube TV, I mean, it's just so damn expensive. $480 a year. When we used to be able to watch games, for nothing. Like when cable used to be cheap. So it almost makes you have to break down and buy cable again. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I'll put a post up. Just watch my post. I have a really good antenna too, because like Trace does too. That I use in the house, and I'm gonna actually buy another one to put out here. I'm actually gonna put it up in the loft above the studio, and get an even better antenna. And I'm gonna put another 70-inch screen TV over here, because my other TV is over here where I work out. But that's why I bought this monitor. I bought a smart monitor that can have all the apps and acts like a TV, and it's all 4K. I bought that for this year just to be able to watch games right here with y'all. If I'm not going to the games. Trey says my last name is Hacker. That's funny. John Desage says, man, I hope our starters get some reps in the preseason because I really don't want a week one fart. John, if there's one thing that we do know, every year the Lions and just about every team out there, they take a ramp up period. To put it to you plainly, I think having the Buffalo Bills on week 2 might be the best opportunity we have at beating the Buffalo Bills this year. When you think about, I guess what I'm trying to say is this. You're only going to have 1 week of game film that is out there in week 1. And just like what happened to the Bears last year in week 2. We went and mollywopped them and hung 50 on them. And then, well, yeah, I think it was close to 50. Was it 46? No, it was 52. It was 52 to 21. But we mollywopped them because there's no tape out there. But usually the first 3-4 weeks of any season, you're starting to ramp up a little bit. And if by week 4, like your team is not winning some games, usually by week 6, it's just about over for your season. If you have more than 4 losses by week 6, it's pretty much done. If you're 1-5 by week 6, you have a very slim to none chance, but the Lions almost pulled that off in 2022. All right, we are just 1 win away, and the refs cheated the Seattle Seahawks in. So the ramp-up period is important, but the Lions always start off somewhat slower, but that's also because a lot of things are more vanilla. They're not, putting in the full installs. But I think in week 2, you're going to see Dan and Drew Petzing kind of empty the chamber a little bit, because that is the game that we want to win. The opening game for the Bills. Look, we don't want to give them a win. We want the Bills Mafia to go home, pissed off because their brand new stadium has, the taint of the Lions left behind. And I do mean taint. All right, let me do a quick. Let me just do a quick checkup here. Looks like we have a video. Oh, by the way, talking about people going to camp. So there was a conversation that was happening the other day about, fans going to camp and you can't record, right? You can't. And the question always remains, like, why can't you at least record? Why can't you at least record some of the, the one-on-ones, right? You're not giving anything up. Why can't you at least do that? It has become a big thing now for teams, especially for the Lions. You can't record anything. So before practice starts, you can take pictures, you can take videos, you can do all that. But afterwards, once they start getting into their individuals, or once they start getting into, the drills and offense versus defense, 11 on 11, 7 on 7, 8:30, man, you cut it right off. You can't do anything. This is St. Brown, I think Whiteside here. Nice high point on the ball. Nice play. But man, he didn't turn his head around or nothing. He was way off on that. I love that play. So if you notice that ball was thrown, with St. Brown still running north. Like, he didn't break. He started to look, but that was an intentional high point, kind of almost a back shoulder, inside shoulder throw. That's a tough ball it's a very tough ball to catch, but it's also a tough ball to defend. That's Jared Goff reading. So he was looking to the inside, or the inside. The corner was looking to the inside, his left side. And once he looked, ball was already there. That was a great play. Anyway, where I was going with this non-recording stuff in practice, you have to forgive me. Let me just look it up, because there was a team that actually called the police on their fans. Did you guys hear this? I think it was an NFC North team. I'm not finding it. I heard it on a podcast, and I could have sworn it was the Vikings. Hold on here. What is this? This can't be legit. This has to be fake. This has to be fake. It says that a fan reportedly snuck into a Rams practice and took a quarterback. That has to be fake. Someone's trolling. Anyway, I don't know which team it was. I'll have to go back and listen to that show, but one team was so upset that they were going to call police on their fans. Now, at Lions training camp, there's no signs, which there should be signs, and I'm wondering at what point they're going to make you leave your phones in the car. But you know what they forgot about? They forgot about people like me that have Meta glasses. Because when you have Meta glasses, you can record. You can take pictures. You can do anything you want. Now, I'm not saying that I did. I'm just saying that people out there that have Meta glasses or any sort of recording glasses, they're not checking those things, and they can't see if you're recording. I mean, I simply just say, hey, Meta, record video, and it records. Now, people around me could hear me say it, I'm sure, but I also don't want to get kicked out. I don't want to lose my Lions loyal tickets, from doing something stupid. So just be careful when you guys are out at camp. Get your pictures in, before practice starts. Don't try to get videos. They are on you like flies on you know what. All right, looks like we had Drew Petzing here that showed up to the podium after practice today. Let me bring that up, and then we're going to get out of here.
What can fans expect to see from look like? But what do you feel like is your trademark, your hallmark? What can fans expect to see from Drew Petzing offense this year?
It needs to be physical. It needs to be tough. It needs to be difficult to defend, and it needs to be multiple at times. It's not going to all run through one person. It's not going to run through one personnel. It's going to change week to week. I think that's important in this league. Defensive coordinators, I think, do things at a really high level. They watch tape. They understand scheme. So I think that's a big part of what we need to be on.
Look like, but what do you feel like is?
There you go. Just a little snippet here. I'm looking for more here. There has to be more on the Lions page, and then we'll get out of here. Be right back.
Throwing middle, caught inside the 5. Jahmyr Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Jared takes the snap back, looking, throwing middle. Got Amon-Ra inside the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Amon-Ra, St. Brown.
Nice job.
Mariota's got it back. Pressure comes. He's hit. Slips out of it. Rolling to his right. Now he's going down. Brian Branch got him. Sack for the Lions. Snap taken by Mariota. Wants to throw it. Gonna get hit. Gonna get sacked.
Yes,
Taken down. Brian Branch got him second time today.
Nice job.
Man, my ad blocker does not want to play this.
And
obviously hasn't been on the practice field. What do you think the offense looks like without him? What do you think you're missing when he's not on the field?
I mean, he's one of our best players. We always want him out there, but I know he's going to be ready when the moment comes, so not concerned about it at all.
What is it as far as, with a new coordinator, new system, though, what is he not taking advantage of, I guess, by not being out there working, I think, more closely with the line, quarterback, all that stuff?
I think that's a small piece of it, but for a guy that's played at such a high level, I think his skill set is very obvious. I think we know what that's going to look like when he hits the field for us. So not something we're particularly worried about. I think we can work on those things even when he's not on the field, and would expect us to pick up right where he left off when he gets back out there.
The flip side of that equation, Drew, is Pacheco's getting a ton of run, and I think people are kind of wondering which Pacheco was this franchise getting early career the last couple seasons. What have you seen from Isaiah here in this first week of training camp, maybe even extending back to OTAs?
Yeah, he's been awesome. Just the way he approaches the job, how physical and how tough he is, how hard he practices, how much he cares. He can have an unbelievable practice, and if there's one rep that he didn't do exactly what he wanted to do, or he beats himself up over it, he's really hard on himself. And I think that is contagious, and it's been fun to work with, and really excited to see that continue.
I can ask one more.
We saw him carry a few tacklers for like an 8-yard run a couple of days ago. Just how infectious can those kind of plays be for an offense?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, as you said it, I think there was contact probably a yard and a half past the line. It ends up being a 9-yard run. And that, to me, is what the run game is about. It's a physical mentality. It's a violent sport. And when you got guys like that with the ball in their hand, I think it gets the rest of the other guys on the field excited about seeing that.
If I can ask just one more sort of on the Gibbs thing, is just on the other side of it for yourself, as a coordinator, play caller, what are you missing by having a special player like
That's a great question.
In the fold, that working relationship, seeing what he can do and how you can use him?
I think that working relationship is still there. I mean, we're still communicating. We're still talking through practice reps and different looks and things that we want to do or things that I think he can do at a high level. So if anything, it gives me the opportunity to try to highlight some other opportunities and give other guys the ball in practice and see what else we could do in those events. I think that's a big part of being an offensive coordinator, is adapting to who's available, who's out there, how do we move people around, how are we dynamic and difficult to defend. And so that's kind of been my focus here these first couple days.
You can't give up too much of, what you're looking for. But it's a lot of fans who still getting to know you, still getting to know what the offense is going to look like. But what do you feel like is your trademark, your hallmark? What can fans expect to see from, Drew Petzing offense this year?
It needs to be physical. It needs to be tough. It needs to be difficult to defend, and it needs to be multiple at times. It's not going to all run through one person. It's not going to run through one personnel. It's going to change week to week. I think that's important in this league. Defensive coordinators, I think, do things at a really high level. They watch tape. They understand scheme. So I think that's a big part of what we need to be on offense.
A lot has been made, obviously, of your use of 13 personnel, but obviously seems like the strength of is the receivers, the wide receiver group. How do you balance that, the position groups, and is there a sacrifice you're going to have to make one way or the other?
I think it is more of an opportunity than a sacrifice. It's an opportunity to put your best players on the field. And in other places I've been, sometimes that was 13 personnel. If it's 11 personnel, if it's 10 personnel, if it's 01 personnel, that's what it's going to be. And I think that's so important to me doing my job at a high level and doing the best job for the organization, is making sure that whoever has the ability to affect the game at a high level, I'm putting them on the field and giving them that opportunity.
How have you kind of, gone through the calculus of just, obviously there's so many players that are capable of, making plays in this offense, but just like balancing who gets the most touches, and that's how have you worked through that yourself, but just so far, I guess?
It's a balance, as you said, and I think a big part of that is challenging guys and saying, hey, you want the ball, go out and earn it. We're in training camp right now. Guys are fighting for roles. They're fighting for touches. They're trying to show me, their teammates, other coaches, this organization, what they can do. And I've always said, you show me you do something at a high level, it's my job to put you in that position over and over again. And I think that's what competition's all about, and it brings out the best in us as individuals and as a unit.
A lot of moving pieces for you right now.
A lot of moving pieces along the offensive line. Just curious, now that you've gotten to see a few padded practice, you can't really evaluate until the pads come on. Just what have you liked about that unit up front? You said you want to be physical, run the football. It obviously starts there. Just what you've seen from those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on. We've had 2 days in pads, so we're starting to be able to evaluate what guys are capable of, where we need to improve, what we do well. I think the not shocking thing, but the surprising thing is some of those things that worked before the pads came on in team drills, in one-on-ones, all of a sudden when the pads come on, it's a little bit of a different sport. And so been really pleased with the attitude, the effort, the physicality. There's some execution things and some technique things that we're going to continue to clean up, but I think that's the starting point. If the physicality is not there, the toughness isn't there, the other part doesn't matter. And so I think we've seen that in 2 days. And then the other stuff, those details will come as we get through the rest of camp.
You just had Greg Dortch for 3 years in Arizona. I mean, when you got St. Brown and JMO and Tesla on there, but you know what Dortch can bring. So what can he offer this offense? And this, yeah.
I mean, the return skills are, second to none, in my opinion. I think he does a great job with the ball in his hand. He plays in the slot a lot, or has, which I think is something he does at a high level. So just as you said, another tool there, and he's got to go out and earn that right now throughout camp. And I think he's doing a nice job of going out there and competing.
Drew, you mentioned that attitude and physicality for the offensive line. Tate said yesterday it feels like that's picked up this year from last year. Beyond just watching the player win his rep, how do you identify and measure attitude, physicality in your offensive line?
Yeah, I think there's two different ways. I mean, some of it is subjective, I guess you could say. Like when you stand on a field or you stand behind a line of scrimmage, you can hear it, you can feel it. I think everybody can to some extent, even in the stands. There's that. It just sounds and feels a little bit different. And then I think the other part is you look for those little things, the extra effort, the finish, things that, maybe weren't there when things aren't going well or you don't have that attitude that need to be there at all times. And I think that's always my challenge, to point that out when it's good, but also to say, hey, like, this isn't our standard and we need better, or we need more. This is why it's important. This is how it helps us win. And that's kind of where I hang my hat. And I think the nice thing is we have guys, Panay specifically in that room, that are going to make sure he holds his teammates to that, because he does it at such a high level.
JMO took a pretty significant developmental jump last year. I know you weren't here, but I know you also did a pretty deep dive in the tape study. Where did you challenge him maybe to take that next step, and how is he answering that call?
He's answering that call, and I think the nature of that receiver room is they're so competitive. They push each other. It's
little rewind.
To take that next step, and how is he developmental jump last year? I know you weren't here, but I know you also did a pretty...
Specifically in that room, that are going to make sure he holds his teammates to that, because he does it at such a high level.
JMO took a pretty significant developmental jump last year. I know you weren't here, but I know you also did a pretty deep dive in the tape study. Where did you challenge him maybe to take that next step, and how is he answering that call?
He's answering that call, and I think the nature of that receiver room is they're so competitive. They push each other at such a high level, kind of starting with Saint there as the leader of that room. And for JMO specifically, I think that, playing physical, playing fast, attacking the football, finishing plays, the speed is second to none. I mean, he can run by everybody. But what guys are going to try to do to negate that is get their hands on him and make sure he doesn't get off on the line of scrimmage, or he can't put, separate at the top of the route. And I think that's where he's tried to really improve, of gaining some of that play strength, being faster at the line of scrimmage, and playing physical at the top of the route. And I think he's doing a nice job.
Feels like personally for you coming in.
Sound familiar? That was my exact preseason breakdown of Jameson Williams, of what he had to improve this year. It's the exact thing that now we're hearing out of Drew Petzing. I'm not saying I'm the only one that has seen this, but last year, Jameson Williams really struggled off the line. He struggled across the middle. Whenever he got bumped, he missed his landmarks, and it made it really difficult for Jared Goff to keep him into play. And at times, when he had drops, like, not every single drop is Jameson's, fault, but at the same time, if your hands get on it, you got to secure the football. But when he gets bumped off the line and gets pushed around, and he's not as strong going through the middle, those are things that can cause drops. Those are things that can cause inconsistencies. When your attention is elsewhere and you're not paying attention because you're worried about the next hit, that is when more drops happen. So great statements here from Drew Petzing this morning that Jameson Williams is putting in the absolute work that he needs to put in this year to get stronger, to snap off the routes, to be stronger through the middle, and then to finish the plays. So love it, man. Great statement.
And obviously, it's so many weapons, this team's so driven to get back, to the standard they set before. Is that a healthy pressure that comes along with just turning this thing around a little bit? How are you dealing with that?
It is, and I've been asked about this a couple times. I look at pressure as a positive term. It's not stress. It's something that we signed up for, that we love to do. I think it brings out the best in us. So I think you need to be in that situation. When the game's on the line, it's not a relaxing feeling. But you do this job because you love those moments, you live for those moments. So, and I think the players do too.
Running back room, it feels like all of those guys have had, a lot of good days out here so far. What's impressed you the most about just like the top to bottom kind of, I don't know if you want to call it production that you're getting for that room, but
talking the running back room? Yeah, I think you see, again, it's set by the standard at the top of the room in terms of the way he approaches things, the way that he goes about his job. It pushes everyone in that room to be better. The guys in front of them have a lot to do with that as well. You're not going to run the ball unless the O-line's doing their job. But I think it's probably one of the things that's most impressive is what they do without the ball in their hand. in pass pro, which is something we ask them to do on third down, in the action game. I think that's the part of the job you really find out about running backs, of what is their willingness for contact, where is their intelligence at, where are their eyes at, how disciplined are they, outside the building and studying their job, knowing the little details of what we're asking them to do. And, for a lot of guys, when you're not the bell cow back, that's your number one role. And if you can dedicate yourself to that, I think you earn a lot of respect to your coaches and a lot of respect for your teammates. I think we have a number of guys in that room doing that at a high level.
When you say that, like, you're saying Jameer setting the standard for that room, and how hard is, or how, it's kind of tricky if he's not out there practicing with the pads on and getting beat up, but still setting the standard.
I think he set the standard in what he's done as he's been here and what he did in the spring. He's a guy who's at every day working his tail off, first in line, doing everything the right way, does not shy away from protection, as the number one back, which I think is extremely important. And I think he's, as I've talked about, he's a very smart player. And he's always trying to help those guys in that room understand how he sees things, how he does things. And I think you can do that no matter where you're at.
I got two things if you want the sort of big picture. Dan said, like, in the spring, you guys were focused on sort of like the meat and potatoes plays, right? Like running them, getting really good at them, but doing a lot of different looks with different bells and whistles. What's sort of the progression? Like, what is the focus right now? Where are you at in terms of?
I don't know. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there. I don't know if we'll ever shy away from that. Like, you have to be good at what you're good at, and you have to find ways to do it differently. And then the other reality right now is we've only done it in 2 days with pads. So we need to make sure that when the pads come on, we still do those things at a high level, and that we can do it in the run game, in the passing game, on third down, in situational football. So I think we're still in that process. As we get closer to the end of camp, you start to turn a little bit more into game plan mindset of who are we playing? All right, what is the front? Where are the key matchups? How do we exploit those type of things? But I think right now the focus is very much still on how do we get better at what we are and how do we complement that with some of those things.
The other thing I want to ask was just about the tight end room. Just, what do you make of it so far? You've had a lot of moving parts in there with different guys coming in and out and injuries.
Yeah, and the unfortunate reality of training camp is you are going to have some guys with some nicks and bruises kind of in and out, and I think it gives those other guys an opportunity to show what they're capable of doing, and it also puts a lot of stress on the coaches, which is great, to get guys ready to make sure they know what they're doing and how they're doing. I think Steve's done a great job with that, but it's been fun to have Sam out there. Brock Wright, arguably one of the most reliable pros, in this organization, just in terms of the role he has for us as an offense. So pleased with where we're at, and want that competition to continue in that room.
Drew, you've had OTAs, you've had training camp, TBD on how much or if the starters will be playing in the preseason. I guess, what are some of the keys that you use as a coordinator to make sure that everybody's comfortable, yourself included, and on the same page before that first game?
Yeah, I think Dan does such a great job of that, just in terms of the way he structures our day, structures the practices. You're going to see a lot of move the ball, call it periods, different situations that he's putting guys in, he's putting coordinators in, which is just great from a learning standpoint, an education standpoint, a communication standpoint, because always things come up. Even in the course of a 17-game season, you don't hit every situation, and you don't end up in all those situations necessarily. So when you can do them and they're authentic, it makes people think, we could have done that here. We could do this here. Make sure we're good at that. Is everybody on the same page here? And I think Dan does such a great job of that throughout camp so that we're ready come week one.
Do you feel like there's value of having starters in the preseason, maybe from a procedural standpoint for you guys?
I think it goes both ways. I think there's so many factors that go into whether that happens, and ultimately well above my pay grade, so not worried about it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Couple of things. One, I was just being funny in there. J-Rod, man, before I get into Drew Petzing, brother, take care of yourself, man. Because a few weeks ago you were saying that you were sick, and now it's been a few weeks, or a couple weeks at least. So, want to see you popping up in the chat. Take your time, man. Take some time off. Stay healthy. You're a young 54. If you're going to retire at 55, that's crazy. So enjoy it, but you can't enjoy it if you're not healthy, right? Remember, I'm trying to get healthy. I'm trying to encourage other people to get healthy right now. I've been through, broken neck and back, basically. Cancer, COVID twice, all since 2020. Neck, back, COVID, cancer, and now post-cancer stuff where, I gained a lot of weight because that Synthroid stuff wasn't working, and a lot of other things that happened in the hospital many times. I mean, you guys remember the one day I was here about 10 o'clock. I just abruptly ended the show because something wasn't right. Ended up in the hospital thought I was stroking out because everything was spinning. And that was just because of post-cancer treatment, having your Synthroid levels be off. It's crazy. Your body is, you only get one, man. Depending on what you believe in, you only get one. So take care of it, man. I wish you nothing but the best. All right, so Drew, I love Drew, man. Like, I was so impressed by him. I mean, the first thing that we did here when we found out about Drew Petzing, I think it was the very next day, I queued up some of his old press conferences. The best way to learn about an offensive coordinator is to listen to them in these situations where the media is asking them some pretty tough questions. He had a pretty rough season with the offense because of all the injuries. How did he adapt? And I thought Drew Petzing handled that extremely well in his last couple of seasons with Arizona. A lot of injuries on the offense. No different than what, the Lions have dealt with defensively, but you have to stay fluid. And what I'm hearing from Drew right now is like, we got guys out, but we have other guys in. And then those guys are getting an opportunity. It's giving me an idea, Drew. It's giving him an idea of how to best develop those guys and see what he has. Right? How can we now run the offense with you in the offense? Maybe you're not a starter. Maybe you're second team. Maybe you're not even second team. Maybe you're third team. Maybe you just joined the team yesterday. What do you got? And he stays fluid with those situations. And you can just tell there's a difference between, there's a huge difference between Johnny Morton and Drew Petzing just from a cerebral standpoint. One of the things that I take away from interviews when I used to interview a lot of guys for positions is how they respond to you. How quickly do they respond? Do they take a minute, think about the question, restate the question back to you in a similar manner, and then answer the question? Or are they just able to rattle it off right away? And not that one way is better than the other, because they're both great. The third way is that you just ramble into a bunch of crap and you can't keep your thoughts together. Drew Petzing can rattle everything off right away, and it is coherent. It is cohesive as far as football, terms, and he knows what he's talking about. When you have a guy that is this quick, so in the cerebral manner, when he's this quick, that is going to lend huge credibility on the sideline in how he's able to handle the pressure of a game. Like he said, I don't think pressure is a bad thing. It's what we signed up for. It can't define you. You have to absorb the pressure. It's what makes you better. You don't crack under pressure. You find ways to navigate through the pressure, around the pressure, over, under, whatever you got to do. That is the right mentality to have. He's not going to be fazed when he finds out, like last year, if he was here and you find out that Sam Laporta is down for the year, or he just came out of the game, or Amon-Ra St. Brown just got banged up and now he's injured. He's not going to crack. He's going to look down his depth chart and say, okay, I know what I can do with this guy. Why? Because I spent time with him in training camp, and I know exactly how we can utilize him. And those conversations that he's having with Jared Goff right now are exactly this. Okay, now we have this guy, and let's figure out what we can do with this guy. Let's get him a couple of looks in practice so I at least understand where he's at this early into training camp, this early into understanding the offense. Even though that some days they're going to be, stuck with a roster that maybe they won't have in the regular season because they're down a few guys, that roster could, and hopefully not, become important later because of the developments that they went through training camp, through the injuries and everything else. Like our tight end room right now is pretty banged up. I love the statement about Brock Wright. You heard the same thing again, like I mentioned this morning from Brad and Dan. He's a pro's pro. He understands his value. He understands his job. He understands his role. He's an eraser. He goes out there and he sets his edge, right, for the running back. He gets downfield to clear out, the linebacker, to clear out, the safety that's cheating up or whatever, right? That is Brock Wright's role in this offense. And then every once in a while, you're going to scheme him up to get free because no one's expecting it. But having a guy like Brock Wright is imperative to this team. You have to have a clear, Y tight end that can get out there and block and make some things happen and catch the occasional pass. Sam Laporta's a game, he's just different, but he's a gamer. Sam Laporta can make some incredible things happen. He can play like he's a wide receiver and catch like a wide receiver. He doesn't move like a wide receiver all the time, but if you notice anything about Sam Laporta, you know that he's a very smooth mover with the ball in his hands. One of the emphasis is, or one of the things that Dan Campbell emphasized way back when Sam Laporta was first brought in was being able to turn and knife. And that is no lost movement. You take that ball all in the same motion. You're catching, turning, and knifing forward. Why? Because those extra, 1 to 3 yards that you're getting from having a very effective turn and knife is important to being able to move the chains. And if you notice, every player does it. St. Brown's one of the best at doing it. But Sam Laporta is very smooth with his movement. He may not look quick, but he sure gains a lot of yards. It's more about your movement and your positioning than it is about your raw speed at times. It's more about understanding where the players are, where the defense is, and where you are in the formation and at the time that you're catching the pass and having that understanding. It's like you have a mental heat map, right? You know where everyone is. That awareness is so important. And so Drew's learning all these things. He's learning all these things about his players, but he's also trying to figure out how he can best put these players in a position to win. But being fluid with the injuries right now is something you don't want to see in the season, right? One of the other notes, he was asked about preseason. Obviously, like he said, some things are just above his pay grade. When they get that far, if Dan Campbell makes a decision, then they make the decision. And the way things are shaping up right now with all these, injuries, there may be a couple of tight ends that have to get in. There may be a couple, snaps or a series for the starters. And then I'm kind of betting that we're going to see at least one series. And it won't be the third game. The third game is just a bunch of, it's just a bunch of guys out there that are just playing wild. They're looking for that highlight reel hit. They're, and that's where guys get hurt because they're not playing as a team. For most preseason games that I've watched, it was game 3 or game 4 that had some of the most wild developments in it for injuries or hits or whatever. And that's because those guys are playing to stay on the roster. Now, if you listen to what Dan Campbell said the other day, he wants these guys doing things with technique, the things that they have been taught. Even if you do it wrong 10 times in a row, but you did it right, or if you failed 10 times in a row, but you did it right, those are the things that are going to lend to a better season overall and your growth. So in those third and fourth games, when you got guys just trying to make a roster, they sometimes lose the ability to make a roster because they weren't doing what they were asked to do. They were just doing what, their body took over. Their body just takes over the game. They want to make plays. You talked about J-Mo. And I thought it was a great statement. Like I said earlier, I won't rehash it too much. But the J-Mo jump and the mental jump last year is an even bigger mental jump this year. But I'm glad that he touched on the fact of J-Mo's inconsistencies from last season and how he's trying to take control of that this season by getting stronger, developing his routes even better. But most importantly, it's staying consistent through the middle of the field. J-Mo just has to learn how to avoid the linebackers as much as he can. He has to learn how to avoid that cheating safety. And I think the biggest thing is you just can't fear that you're about to take a lick, even though that the NFL has gotten rid of, or I should say made it more difficult for the defense to really put a big hit on a receiver, especially a defenseless receiver coming over the middle. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because it happens all the time. And I think J-Mo took a few licks last year that anytime he was... Look, Morton was putting the dude in a position to catch a hospital ball, and that's the one thing that I love about Jared Goff. He does not put his players in harm's way. He did a couple of times last year, but I think it was more of a case of necessity that they had to get the play, and that may have been the only opportunity. But Jared Goff rarely puts his players in harm's way. He would rather not make the connection. He would rather make a bad pass, dirt the ball. And I know our fans, for some reason, they get all over Jared Goff for dirt and balls, but that is done by purpose. It is not an intentional throw that he's trying to complete. It's an intentional throw going to the ground. He's just killing the play. Doesn't want to put a guy in harm's way and wants to get to the next down. Because if you do try to complete that ball and Amon-Ra St. Brown gets taken out of the game and maybe the season, well, then you might as well pack it in. Jared Goff's really smart with that stuff. I think that's it. I think that's it for today. We did an NFC North wrap-up, or NFC North recap of the first week. Ben Johnson. For some reason, people think that Ben Johnson was the only answer for Detroit to win a Lombardi, and they think that Ben's going to win one before Dan. Yeah, I don't think so. I hope not, but I don't think so. Drew Petzing is going to shock the world this year with this offense. If you're not convinced by now who Drew Petzing is, and the preseason is not going to be an area that we can really evaluate Drew Petzing, because you're going to have second, third, fourth, teams in there, and it is going to be really hard to evaluate. However, I will say this, exactly what I was just saying a few moments ago. If Drew Petzing is as good as I think he is, and with the players that we have now, if he is able to find that role and be able to identify what these players can do within the offense, then that will show up in the preseason. And players will have some successful games. I don't care about the end score. I don't care if we lose every preseason game. Offensively, what we're looking for is execution. We're looking for Drew Petzing to be able to, one, coordinate a good opening script, and then also be able to move away from that and change what he's doing if it's not working. But more importantly, the preseason is just for the offense and defensive coordinators and special teams to get out there and just kind of play and tinker with some things. They're going to work on some things that maybe they think they need work on, and they're going to get to some things that is not really part of the full spread of their offense, or, the full menu of their offense or defense. They usually work on the things that they need the most help on, and then they're working on things that maybe you're going to see from every team anyway, so it's no big deal. You're not going to see, or you shouldn't see, a bunch of trick plays. You shouldn't see any passes to, the offensive linemen. You may, I doubt it. You're just not going to see that stuff. That's for later. All they're trying to do is execute. They want their positioning to be right. They want their motions to be fluid. They don't want any penalties. They want guys getting to the right landmarks. And they want the quarterbacks to be making the right decisions. Outside of that, unless you have your starters in, it's just a glorified practice. That's all it is. And it's all it should be. So we can't evaluate Drew Petzing if we lose games. And I can already, I'm saying this now because I can already see what certain individuals and other, sports, content creators or so-called, sports media outlets, what they're going to print and what they're going to say. It's because they don't understand how this works. They're just toxic media. That's all it is. Got a few days left. Bengals on the clock. And I'm out of here. You guys have a great Thursday afternoon, rest of your morning. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
middle, caught inside the 5. Jahmyr Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Jared takes the snap, back looking, throwing middle. Got Amon-Ra inside the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Nice job.
Mariota's got it back.